Hello, hello, and welcome to today's video. It is finally time, and we're gonna finally create our first Daggerheart character. It's been a while. I've been waiting for this. I hope you're excited. I definitely am. So, I've made already 2 or 3 videos about this. One where I talked about Daggerheart in general, one where I rolled the character concept we're gonna make today with this little random character creation sheet right here. And one last video where I prepared all the sheets and all these little cards we're gonna need for this character creation video. But in the meantime, since I made all the prep, there has been a sizable update to the playtest material version 1.3 that came out 1 or 2 weeks ago, I think now. Fortunately for me, the druid, the goblin, and the underborn, the elements that we rolled basically during random character creation, were not affected too much by the changes, but I do have 2 sheets that I have to change. The druid character sheet, which has updated thresholds and stress, like changes that affected basically all the characters. Well, these are updated. And another one that's going to be useful for character creation is the equipment that did change with version 1.3. A lot of changes, a lot of rules also changed, but they won't have too much of an impact today specifically. Like on character creation, there are rules that would affect combat, exploration, the mechanics, but for character creation it doesn't change too much. So I did not change all of my cards. Some of them have apparently language changes. Some of the language has been modified to fit better with the new rules, but are essentially the same functionally, so I did not change all of the cards. So I'm gonna right away change these 2. I think equipment I put in here as a general character sheet. Yeah, so equipment, I'm gonna change. I think I'm gonna make it really visible like this on this side, because we're gonna need to know what equipment we can pick. And then my character sheet itself also has to change. So this will come in here. This. And I'm gonna put this one like this too, so we can see on the flip side like this. Pretty good. And with that, I think we're mostly ready to begin. So the first page is once again the title page, I could say, where you can check the QR code. I'll let it clear a little bit if you want to see if there are any changes since the last time you downloaded the material. I'm good for today with the few changes I just made. And then there is the play guide, but I'm not going to use it today. And lastly, there is the character creation guide, which I'm going to use indeed today, because that's exactly what we're doing. And with that, we can start our step-by-step character creation. The first thing we would have to do is choose a class, but that has already been done. We are going to play a druid, or at least we're going to create one. Then we can choose a subclass, and right away, this is where those cards are going to come into play, because all the subclasses, all the abilities, everything, pretty much everything actually, is on a card like those. And here we have 2 cards to choose from for our subclass. Put that back there. Having a little bit of trouble with those small boxes. There we go. Okay, so we can choose. I don't know if I'm gonna have to write it. Yes, here. Okay, so we can choose either the Warden of the Elements. This subclass uses the Instinct trait to spellcast, and the same goes for the other subclass. It doesn't change, and gets the ability Elemental Incarnation. Mark a stress to embody an elemental spirit from the list below, lasting for up to 1 hour or until you use the ability again. This ability can be used during and overlap with beast form. And you have 4 spirits to choose from. Fire. When an enemy in melee range deals damage to you, they take 1d8 magical damage. Earth. You gain +2 armor score. Water. You have advantage on agility rolls and can breathe underwater. And lastly, air. You gain +2 evasion. So that's the first subclass we can choose. The second is the Warden of Renewal. Spellcast Instinct once again, and you get 2 ability. The first is Clarity of Nature. Once per long rest, you may create a space of natural serenity around you. After spending a few minutes resting within the space, you can clear stress equal to your instinct trait, distributed as you choose between you and your allies. Stress is a resource that you use to use some abilities. It's a limited resource. I think you start with only 6 in a day. So being able to clear stress allows your friends or yourself to use more of your abilities. So that's pretty neat. And the second ability is Regeneration. Touch a creature and spend 3 hope to heal 1d4 of their hit points. Hope, once again, is a resource. It's much more fluid, so you gain hope a lot during the game. So this one is a healing ability. Pretty neat. Now, to choose between those two, I'm gonna start thinking of the character as a whole. So we are playing a druid. Their ancestry is goblin, and their community is underborn. These are the three elements that we rolled that we cannot change. So I'm thinking, what would an underborn goblin, a goblin that lived in a subterranean society under the earth, in the darkness, what would be their draw? Would they be more drawn to the elements? Or would they be more of a healer? Someone who takes care of others, a support, basically, is how I see those two. And I'm thinking, well, the Underborn sounds a bit like a rough place, not gonna lie. And I think having someone who can heal you, who can take care of you, is invaluable down there. So I think we could probably make it work as a character if they were a healer, someone who learned how to take care of other in that rough environment, and people were drawn to them, and they can use the elements of nature to help with that, instead of using them for not necessarily destructive natures, like not all of those are destructives, but they tend to be a little bit more in the case of the elements. And I don't think we need more destruction in the Underborn society. Feels like that community is already well, has a lot of that already. So the Warden of Renewal seems a bit more interesting to me. So that's the one we're gonna take. And I'm gonna send this one back to the box. There we go. So I can already say that we have the Renewal subclass. There. So that's the first thing done. Next on our character creation, we have choose a heritage. That's already done, and I'm probably gonna pull out our well, heritage actually includes both ancestry and community cards, so we know we are a underborn goblin. So let me get those cards out. So in this one I put all of the ancestries, so we're gonna go for the goblin right here. Those of goblin ancestry are small humanoids, typically recognized by their large eyes and massive membranous ears. They have danger sense. Once per short rest, you may mark a stress to make the GM re-roll an attack roll. If it still hits you, you reduce the incoming value by your proficiency. So that's our ancestry, and let's go take our community. Ah, there it is. Underborn. Being part of an underborn community means that you are from a subterranean society. Low light vision is their ability. When you are in an area with low light or heavy shadow, you will have advantage on rolls to hide, investigate, or perceive details. Pretty neat, pretty neat. So, actually, this goes back in here first. So, this is our heritage, a combination of both our community and our ancestry. There we are. So our heritage, we have Underborn, Goblin, all right. So after that, we can set our traits and evasion. So we distribute the values -1, 0, 0, +1, +1, and +2 across our character traits. There are 6 of them: agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge. And you can definitely draw some parallels to Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of those are very similar, but notable differences is that there is no constitution, and dexterity in Dungeons and Dragons has been split into agility, which is more macro, the big movements, and finesse, the micro movements, I would call them. So agility would be sprinting, leaping, maneuvering, while finesse is controlling, hiding, and tinkering. So we have to put all of these into our traits, and then we can set our evasion score. The evasion score is what it's kind of like the armor class in Dungeons and Dragons. It's the threshold an attacker has to meet on their roll to hit a creature. Ours start at 8. So, as long as you don't have anything to change that, it's gonna stay 8. Then we have our 6 abilities. Instinct is our spellcast trait, and I do believe what we are going to use most as a druid. So I'm going to put the +2 right here, right away. And I think it makes sense for someone in a subterranean society to have as good of an instinct as they can. Next, we have to choose, well, what are our strengths, like what are we decent at, what is neither a strength or a weakness, and what is our one weakness. So, I think maybe knowledge could be our weakness. We could put -1 in knowledge, I think, because a subterranean society is not the place where I think we would find a lot of books, knowledge, education, etc., etc. And I think that's what forced us to what we lacked in education make up for with our instinct. So that's what I'm gonna go for. Then I think our finesse, to be able to hide, to be able to move around the shadows and maybe control little things, could come in very handy with the Underborn community. Since we are already good at these kind of being in the dark things, I think finesse would play well into that. So I'm gonna put +1. Then we have one last +1 to put, And honestly, I think agility is where I would put it. I don't think I need a lot of strength or a very good presence in this for this character concept. I think being able to move around is going to be more important than being able to have brute strength or good presence. So I'm gonna put my last +1. Ooh. Oh boy, let me do that again. +1 and 0 and 0. Alright, so those are for our traits. Next, set your thresholds and hope. So each class will start with its own damage thresholds detailed on the character sheet under the hit points section. Record these in their appropriate spaces, then take 2 hope to start the game. So let's do just that. So we start with a minor threshold of 1, a major threshold of 7, and a severe threshold of 14. And we can also take 2 hope. So that's it for now. That was pretty easy to do. Then choose our starting weapon. That is gonna be a little bit longer, I think. Aha, yes, I do have the weapons right here. So we have a primary weapon and a secondary weapon as we start. Each of the weapon uses a different trait for their attack. And there are even traits of the more mental traits like instinct and knowledge. I think every trait can be used for one or another weapon, which is pretty nice for the spellcasting classes. So in this case, I'm probably gonna go for a magic primary weapon because instinct is our best ability, so this is where we're gonna find most of the weapons that use instinct. There is also the quarterstaff that uses instinct, but I don't think it's necessarily as interesting as the other options, and you'll see why. So here we have hand runes that use instinct and are very close range that deal 1d10 damage. And we have the dual stuff that has a range of 4 that deals 1d6 plus 3 damage. A d6 is not an impressive damage compared to some of those, but plus 3 really makes that a lot better. That's between 4 and 9 damage every time. That average is pretty good. That's a 6.5, I think, of average. Pretty neat. That's better than a flat D10. And it's a little bit more consistent because there's a little bit less range, and the fact that you can do that damage from a far range is very interesting in my mind. So the dual staff uses 2 hands, but I think here it's worth it. We wouldn't be able to use a shield because of that, but I don't think it's necessary to have a shield. So that's what we're gonna take for our primary weapon. A dual staff. And trait, so that's instinct. And a range of 4. Damage dice 1d6 plus 3. And there is no feature to the dual staff, so pretty easy for that. Our secondary weapon. So that's a weapon that we could either have in our offhand or that we can use in other in situation where we don't use our primary weapon. Here I'm gonna go for a weapon that I can use in melee if I don't have my dual staff, or if it's no use because everybody got too close, or yeah, I don't have it on me at the moment. This is what I'm gonna want to use. So I'm looking for something small that does melee damage and possibly can get us some other boons or abilities. So the strength shields are no use to me, I think. I'm waiting for someone to prove me wrong with a build that would work using all of those, but right now the shields are not really interesting. So what we have is a dagger that uses finesse, an ability we have a +1 in, and has the ability paired, +2 to primary weapon damage in melee. Not the best ability for us. The saber, which uses agility, once again an ability trait that we have a +1 in, and also has paired. So there's not really a difference for us between the small dagger and the saber. The whip uses presence, a range of very close, and has whip crack, marker stress to scatter enemies in melee back to close range. Presence is not our best ability, but maybe that feature makes up for it. I'm not quite sure yet. The grappler is finesse, has a range of close, and on a successful attack you may also pull the target into melee with you. Now I'm not quite sure I want to pull people into melee. If the dual staff is my primary weapon, I'm probably gonna want to get them farther away from me, so I don't think that's necessary. And the hand crossbow finally has a range of far, but does less damage than our dual staff. So since we already have our dual staff, I don't see the interest of it. So I think here I'm gonna go for the whip, even if our presence is not the best. I think the ability to scatter enemies and get them further away from us would be pretty nice here. So our secondary is gonna be the whip. The trait is presence. Range is very close. And the damage dice is 1d6. The feature is whip crack. And marker stress. To scatter enemies in melee. I'm not gonna write all of that. I'm not gonna have the space in here, but this should give me pretty much the notes I need to remember what that feature does. So that's pretty much it for the weapons. We have some other equipment coming right up, but for the weapons, that's it, I believe. So after that, starting weapons, record the details, choose our starting armor. So take one of the available starting armors and record its details in the appropriate space. So here we have leather armor with base score of 2. Oh yeah, armor quickly is going to allow you to reduce incoming damage. So after you are hit, after someone meets your evasion threshold, when they deal damage to you, you can use your armor and these armor slots to reduce the incoming damage by this value. So bigger armor comes with some disadvantages, but they allow you to reduce damage more. So the first armor is leather armor with a base score of 2 and no feature. The breastplate armor is stiff, so it gives -1 to agility, but has a base score of 3. The chainmail armor gives -1 to evasion, but has a base score of 4, so you're easier to hit, but you're harder to deal damage to. And the full plate armor is very heavy, with a -2 to evasion and -1 to agility. So I've seen some analysis by people who played the game and people who reflected on the game, saying that breastplate and chainmail armor for a non-combatant character are probably the most interesting, because they provide higher damage reduction for a very small price to pay. And right now, I agree with that analysis, and I think it clashes with the design intent that Squisher character would not put on bigger armors. Like, why would your little puny wizard be wearing a full chainmail of armor? So I think right now it clashes, but I do agree that mechanically these are probably better armor for our character. But narratively, I don't think our goblin druid would be wearing metal armor. I don't see why someone from the Underborn that's in touch with nature would have such a I don't know how to say, but developed armor, or industrial armor, like something that would have been worked on so much. I think the leather armor fits much more narratively for our character, and I don't mind doing a character that's not optimized. So this is what we're gonna go for. We're gonna take the leather armor because I think it fits better, even if it's not as good right now. I think you understand. So our active armor is going to be the leather armor. And has a base score of 2 and no feature. Then we can take our starting equipment. So the starting inventory for your class is listed on our character guide. We record those items in the inventory section on our character sheet. So what do we start with? It's on our character guide. Where is that again? There we are. Character guide. So let's take a look. I didn't look at it today, but first we have the suggested traits. So agility +1, strength 0, finesse +1, instinct +2, presence -1, and knowledge 0. So not doing too bad, I think. Just switch presence and knowledge, and I feel like that's a totally fair decision, but seeing that my instinct, agility, finesse, and strength score are what they suggested, I think I put a little spin on the character to make it a little bit more my own, but feels fine to me. Suggested primary weapon, the short staff, and secondary, the round shield. So I changed on that. I decided to go for a more ranged approach. but I think that's not a bad thing necessarily. Might be a bit harder to do with our beast form, which is one of our 2 abilities. Should probably go over those before I move on. We have 2 abilities, 2 class features as a druid. The first one is Wild Touch. We can perform harmless, subtle effects that involve nature at will. So, causing a flower to rapidly grow, summon a slight gust of wind, start a campfire, that kind of stuff. And beast form is the traditional turn into an animal. So we mark a stress to transform into a magical creature from the beast form list, equal to our level or lower. We lose the use of any equipment and domain cards, but gain the feature, attack trait, and armor score of the creature. We can drop out of this form at any time, and when we mark our last hit point or our last stress in this form, the form automatically drops. So yeah, I was just thinking, well, maybe doing a long range build is not as useful for our beast form, because these beasts have to be in melee, but I think we can live with that still. The suggested armor here, I didn't change the character guide, so you're gonna see the leather armor is from the previous version. But still, we did go for the leather armor here. Inventory, there it is. So we take a torch, 50 feet of rope, basic supplies, and a handful of gold. So here, this change. So we have now single coins, handfuls of gold, bags, and chests. Now, I'm not quite sure how this system works, but in my mind, when you have 10 coins, you can change it to a handful, and the handful equals 1 bag. 10 handfuls would equal 1 bag, and 10 bags would be a chest. That's how it works in my mind. I'm gonna have to check the rules for that, but I didn't get there yet. But I think it's a pretty good system to make it so you don't have to track individual gold coins. Like, you get to a level sometimes where you have thousands of gold coins, and you have to check if you have, like, if you can spend 2. It's not always the best feeling to mark half a gold coin out of your 2,882 gold coins, So I think this system is a little bit more loose, a little bit more lax, but I'm down for that. So we have 1 handful of gold, basic supplies, 50 feet of rope, and a torch. So basic supplies. Our rope, and our torch. Fantastic, and I think that's all the equipment. No, actually, we choose then between a minor health potion or a minor stamina potion. I'm gonna go for health because we are a healer after all. And last but not least, either a small bag of rocks and bones or a strange pendant found in the dirt. Now that's an interesting choice. What would I found in our subterranean environment? I feel like I could get both. Definitely can find some rocks. Probably some bones, but a strange pendant, like that's a little bit of a trinket. I could have definitely found that. I'm kind of drawn to the strange pendant, so that's what I'm gonna take here. No real reason other than that's just what I feel like taking. Alright, and these are our supplies. And I didn't erase too much of the sheet when I turned it. Not too bad. A little bit. Clearly you can see some spots where I rubbed it, but it's not too bad. Then choose a description. So make choices from the available options on your character guide or create your own. This will help you start to build out your character's look and attitude. So let's check that out. So, character description. Choose one or more from each line or make your own. So our clothes are, we have some suggestions, so natural, grown, scraps, regal, patchwork, loose, or camouflaged. So I don't think we would have camouflaged or loose clothes. I think something like patchwork, maybe. Some things we got along the way and patched together with what we could would be what I'm going for here. Then eyes like fire, lilacs, endless ocean, night, ivy, seafoam, earth, winter, carnations. I'm gonna just take a look at the art for the goblin and think what would their eyes be. I feel like lilacs would work well with that skin tone. It seems like a kind of teal skin tone. It's not quite blue, but it's definitely more bluish than goblins in other universes, so I feel like lilacs could be a pretty color for that. A body that's lanky, tall, curvy, rotund, short, thin, toned, stocky, broad, carved, or tiny. Oh, we're definitely going for tiny for our goblin. I like that. And yeah, I think that's what we're gonna go for. The color of obsidian, rose, falling snow, fine sand, ashes, clover, sapphire, wisteria. I don't know what that last one is, but I don't know if that's the color of our body or the color of like our theme, our color theme. I'm gonna take it as a color theme more than the color of like our skin. I feel like ashes would be a good color theme for someone from the Underborn community. And our attitude, lastly, as a guide, a hippie, a dog, a firecracker, or a witch. Very good choices here. I love those options. I think a dog, like, I think we definitely have some golden retriever energy where we like to meet new people and take care of them and just follow them around. A little bit of a firecracker too, maybe. Just a lot of energy, you know. I think that's good. Those are good first step for our character, I think. So that's it for our description. Yep, description. Then we take our domain deck cards. So that's where we're gonna start having a lot of fun. So each class is made up of 2 different domains listed below the class name on the character sheet. Choose 2 cards, total from the level 1 cards in those domain from the domain deck. So these are abilities we'll have and we'll be able to use from now on. You may share these decks with other classes. Actually, you share these decks with other classes, and you may share these decks with some other members of your party. So if that's the case, tell them about what cards you're interested in and ask them what they are interested in as well, so you don't have the same thing if it's not useful to have the same thing, just to make sure. Good communication is the key. So we're gonna start taking a look at those domain cards now. Ooh, that's pretty nice. I didn't take a look at them yet, so I'm pretty excited to see what these level 1 cards are gonna look like. I took a look a little bit at some of the weapons and some of the stuff we've seen up to now, but this, not so much. Definitely not in detail. So at level 1, we have the Sage and Arcana domains we can choose from. So the Warden of the Elements, let's put that here. So let's start with our this is Sage domain cards, and then we have Arcana. So the first card, Gifted Tracker. Make a spellcast roll to track or ask the GM one question you'd be able to learn about a specific creature or group of creatures based on signs of their passage. If you spend a hope before the roll, you can double your spellcast trait as the modifier. If you encounter any creatures you track, your evasion against them is +2. Definitely a sweet ability to be able to track creatures and be prepared to meet them if you do. Then we have a spell. So the first one was an ability. This one is a spell. Vicious Entangle. Make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, so a little typo here, probably fixed in version 1.3. On a success, roots and vines reach out from the ground and temporarily restrain them, dealing 1d8 physical damage. On a success, you may also spend a hope to temporarily restrain any enemies very close to your target. Pretty cool little control ability, could fit very well with our far range theme here. And the third ability for the Sage domain, Nature's Tongue. You can speak the language of the hidden natural world. When you want to speak to the plants and animals around you, make an instinct roll, 12. On a success, they'll give you the information they know. With fear, their knowledge might be limited or come at a cost. In addition, whenever you make a spellcast roll while within a natural environment, you may spend a hope before the roll to add +1 to the result. So a spellcast roll in a natural environment. So that means pretty much all of our abilities, if we are in a natural environment, would potentially be increased. So that's pretty good, I think, for that last part, being able to increase any ability as long as we're not like in a city. That's pretty interesting. Let's check the Arcana. So the first one is a spell, Wall Walk. Spend a hope to allow a creature you can touch to climb on walls and ceilings as easily as walking on the grounds below. This spell will end after 10 minutes or when you cast it on another creature. So, yeah, being able to walk on walls, pretty self-explanatory here. Then we have another spell, Unleash Chaos. At the beginning of a session, place a number of tokens equal to your spellcast rate on this card. You can make a spellcast roll against a target within far range and spend any number of tokens to channel raw energy from within yourself and unleash against them. On a success, roll a number of d10 equal to the tokens you spent and do that much magic damage to the target. Mark a stress to replenish this card with tokens up to your spellcast rate. Clear all tokens at the end of the session. Pretty neat little mechanic here. So at level 1 we would basically be able to deal 1 or 2 d10 damage with this, and with our stress we could replenish this card. That's pretty neat. I don't know if that's something I would want as a spell here. It could work with the 4 range, but I don't think we are a damage dealer. I think I'm much more interested in the Vicious Entangle that deals, yes, less damage, but if you spend hope, can entangle a few enemies, possibly, which seems more interesting for that control and the support of our allies. But still, very cool mechanic. And the last one, yes, the last one is Rune Ward. You have a deeply personal token or trinket that can be infused with protective magic and held as a ward by you or an ally. Describe what it is and why it's important to you. When the holder of the ward takes damage, they can spend hope to reduce it by 1d8. If the ward die rolls an 8, its power will temporarily end after it reduces damage this turn. It can be recharged for free on your next rest. That's pretty interesting. That would give us a little bit of defensive abilities over our support abilities. Like, we can heal already, but defense not our strong suit. Rune Ward could help with that. We also don't have great armor. I forgot to put our armor here. You can only reduce the damage by 2 for each armor slot we spend. So even having the Rune Ward on us could be definitely worth it. And you have 1 out of 8 chances to lose the protective ability. That's not like, that's pretty good odds to keep them for a few attacks. And you can reduce like the damage by 5, 6, or 7, which is a good reduction without losing the ward. So that's pretty neat. Let me see. I definitely feel like I have instinctually 2 that come to mind. The Rune Ward and the Vicious Entangle. Now, is there one that I thinking about it twice changes my mind? Not Unleash Chaos, definitely. Wall Walk is pretty neat, but not for this concept. I don't think. Nature Storm, definitely a good contender. But I don't think I'm gonna go for it. I think I'm gonna go for Rune Ward and Vicious Entangle here. So So we have officially our first two. Sorry, I was out of frame a little bit there. Our first two abilities, our first two cards: Vicious Entangle and Rune Ward. And the rest is going back in the box. Where did I put? Yes. There we go. So these are our first abilities. That's pretty cool to see our character getting fleshed out like this. I like that. So we are an underborn goblin. We heal and take care of people. We can ward ourselves or our allies and entangle our enemies from afar, and then use our dual staff to blast them from afar. It's pretty cool in my opinion. Pretty cool concept we got going on. Let's see how we keep this going. We're almost done here. Take domain, answer background questions. So use the background questions on your character guide as a jumping off point to build out your character's history. Let's do that then. So we have 3 background questions. So the first one: why was the community you grew up in so reliant on nature and its creatures? Ooh. I think in the Underborn there might have been a rarity of some of these, the natural elements. No sun, not a lot of vegetation, maybe few creatures even, like you don't see a squirrel on the ground, you know? So there were not a lot of these. So the few they had, they really had to take care of. So rarity leading to dependence and taking care of what they had, whether it would be for like I think just for survival, you know, having food. You cannot eat rocks, so you definitely need to grow something or to hunt something, but there's not a lot of it. So the little they had, they really were reliant on it. What was the first bond you made with a wild animal, and why did it end? Oh, why did it end? That's sad. The first bond, what could we find underground? Maybe a little insect. Yeah. What could dig underground? An ant? Could have found it like an ant that lost his colony. Sure. And one day it was gone, and we suspect that it sensed the smell of one of its compatriots and found its way back. but we don't have a definitive answer on that. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. And who has been trying to hunt you down? What do you think they want from you? Who would like to hunt down a healer? Maybe we healed someone they are looking for. But do we know who they are? Who's been trying to... I feel like we don't know that yet. We don't know who's tracking us down. But they are looking for someone we healed. Yeah, I like that. And that would give a GM a very good hook narratively to work with, I feel. So I like that prompt. I like that answer too. I think that's a pretty good job. So those are the background questions. Excellent. Then we can generate experience. Use all of the choices and backstory you've made about your character so far to generate their experience, a set of narrative words or phrases that represent the kinds of things they've learned or become on their journey so far. Assign one +2 and the other +1 as their starting value. Now, where do we do experience? Right here. So I feel like the first one would be some kind of a like healer, maybe a more specific word, but I feel like we would have been in a healing ward, hospital, like a place where sick or wounded people would need treatment, and we provided it there. What could we say that is? Medic, kind of. But I'm looking for a word that could describe that. You probably have it in mind and I are screaming at your screen. I'm sorry about that. Someone who cares. I'm really just looking for the word. A caretaker? Would that be it? I'm gonna look up what caretaker means, just to make sure. Caretaker definition. Let's look at that. One that is employed to look after or take charge of goods, property, or a person, a custodian. Someone who takes care of a place or thing, someone looking after somewhere or with responsibility for keeping a place in good repair. Not keeping a place in good repair. I would take care of people. I think I'm gonna go maybe for a healer then. I'm gonna look at synonyms for healer. Healer synonym. Let's look at that. Physician, shaman, therapist. Dr. Mender. Not quite what I'm looking for. Medic synonym. Doctor, paramedic, nurse, Maybe nurse could work. Maybe we can give that spin that we were a nurse and we learned like that. Pediatrist, clinician, surgeon, specialist. Aid man? That's a new term for me. I think I'm gonna go for healer. I lost that time thinking of something else, and basically we're gonna go for that, so healer. We're gonna give +2. That's what we do. What would be another trait? Another experience that we have. We're from the Underborn community. I think something that would tie me to that aspect would be fun. Maybe a kind of an explorer of the tunnels. Maybe we're a guide underground, and that's something that let us like discover the nature and the beauty of nature underground. So maybe we're a guide of some sort, or an animal handler, maybe. Ooh, an animal handler could work with, like, maybe we started taking care of the animals, and then we worked our way up to humanoids. Oh, I like that. Sure. Our second experience is gonna be animal handler. We're gonna put +1 in here. And I think that's it. Generate experience, then we record our name and pronouns. As always, I'm gonna ask you what is a name you think would fit this character, and if you have ideas of pronouns, please let me know in the comments. That would be very fun for me to include and incorporate your vision of this character into them. I would love that. So as always, tell me what name and pronouns you think would fit this character. And lastly, create connections. So that would be creating connections with your party members, the other characters, or NPCs, but we don't have that today. We're just making our level 1 character, not for a game or anything, just to have fun creating characters. So that means we are done. We're not gonna jump into leveling up quite yet. I think this is a long enough video like this. So please let me know what you thought of this video. Did you enjoy it? What do you think of Daggerheart's character creation? I definitely had a lot of fun. I'm very excited about this game. I feel like it's gonna be a fun little familiar game. Of course, it's not hugely different from Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm not looking for something very different from Dungeons and Dragons. I like the feel of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm just looking for something that's gonna shake up a little bit the way I play Dungeons and Dragons or TTRPGs in general, and I feel like Daggerheart could definitely provide that. And this character creation process is definitely making me feel that way even more. So let me know what you thought of the video, of Daggerheart, of this character, down in the comments. And with that, I will see you next time. Generic cards that pretty much any character could use. So this green color for the card sleeves, I'm gonna keep for druid stuff.